G'day, it's Chris the Guitar Amp Tech from Sydney, Australia here. And today we've got that dreaded Marshall DSL problem of the drifting bias. But I have a more exciting solution than my old diamond drill bit cutting holes into a circuit board solution. So go grab a coffee, shuffle back quickly, and let's get started. When Toyota has a major problem, or Volkswagen, they do a recall, they get all the cars back in, it must cost them a fortune, but they do the right thing. Whether they want to, whether it's by law, don't know. But Marshall didn't do that. They knew the problem. They stopped making replacement boards and abandoned us to techs coming up with what they can do. So it's the problem with the board becoming conductive, the PCB becoming conductive, and you have to then isolate pin 5, which is the control grid, the bias point of a tube, which wants to see a negative voltage, negative 40 volts, for example. But right next to it, like this far away from it, is like 400 volts. And if that board is even the slightest bit conductive, and some of that 400 leaks onto the minus 40 and takes it up to minus 30, oof, gone. So I used to drill into the circuit board, make a hole around pin 5 to isolate it physically, mechanically and electrically from the leakage points. Pain in the butt. And do you really want to go drilling into your customer's multi-$1,000 head? But thankfully, one of my colleagues in Sydney, an amp repairer, he's on the western side of Sydney, I'm on the eastern side of Sydney, clever young man called Brad, of Brad's Guitar Garage, I'm sure you know his YouTube channel, has started making replacement boards. How good is that? I've used a couple of other Brad's things and they're always great quality. So this is going to be way more reliable than drilling holes into a circuit board. Not only that, double benefit, the client also gets brand new capacitors. So I think this is going to be an excellent solution. So this is the board in question, and it was quite obvious that we had the bias drift problem because you could just sit there. I had my multimeter on pin 5 and I was just watching that bias in real time going minus 38, minus 37.5, minus 37, and the less negative the number is, the more positive, the hotter the bias. I could just sit there and watch it just ramping up, and I thought, this thing's just going to self-destruct. So that's the board that's got to come out. As you can see, there's a fair bit of disassembly that needs to go by, and you've got to keep track of all of these wires. So I'm going to be taking more photos than Austin Powers at one of his photo shoots. But Brad, what a nice young man. He's even given me a list of connections of where all the connections go, and look at them all on the main PCB, where they go to, how they're labelled. I'm going to double check all of these, not Brad's fault if this is a different version, but I'm going to double check them all, and I'm going to take a squillion photos so that the new board will go in. This is going to be a whole bunch of boring stuff now, so I'll see you once I'm a bit more disassembled. All right, I've got just about all of them off. I've been ticking things off on Brad's chart as I've been going, all of them exactly correct. I've got a couple left here, but they'll come off when I drop the bottom out of this. Lots of photos. I labelled any of the wires, which I thought, I better just double check those. I've now just flipped up that bottom panel that holds this PCB in place, and it's just going to be easier for me to get these last couple of connections off. I am wearing safety glasses. Why would I be wearing safety glasses? Well, about 40 years ago, a mate of mine was working on an old Chrysler Valiant. I think he was working on the brakes or something, and he was pulling something with a pair of pliers, came backwards, and that poor mate of Vince's was left blinded in one eye. That was 40 years ago. So whenever I'm pulling stuff with my pliers, I don't want to get blinded in one eye. So remember this, white W3. Okay, that should come away. Might just mark those last couple of wires. Right, that's out. I'm just noticing some things on Brad's replacement PCB. I love the name. FU Marshall. I like this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but you see all those little slots that is cut in here. That's between to separate the high voltage from the low voltage points. Decreases that chance of any cross conduction at all. What else are we going to see? Oh yeah, he's increased the screen grid resistors from the standard 1K to 2K. That's great. We can drop those down a bit. What else? Oh yeah, his rectifier diodes are all elevated off the PCB instead of being flattened down to the PCB like the original Marshalls. In the unlikely event that they catch fire, less likely that it's going to cause any damage to the board. I like it. I've installed the new PCB. It went in beautifully. All the screw holes, mounts, standoffs, all lined up perfectly. Went through and double checked all my connections. You can see all my ticks have been crossed off. There's a couple of no connections there, so I'll just mark them off. So what we're going to do now to test this before I put in any tubes, so we're going to have no load, is I'm running my current limiter into my variac, so my current limiter is going to catch any short way quicker than I'll be able to flick off the power switch. But I'm going to start my variac on 0. I've got both standby and power on the amp, and we're going to be just monitoring voltages as I ramp it up. Just start increasing it slowly. We'll measure on the screens there. I'm seeing the voltage going up. We've currently got 105 volts, 51 volts on the mains supply. We're going to work our way up to probably about 220 because I've got no load on there, no power tubes either side of this screen grid resistor. We've got 123 on the mains input, 266 on our screen. I think I just heard a relay click on. Oh, yeah, it's another thing I like that Brad's done this. I'm not a huge fan of opto couplers. I much prefer relays because it gives you a real 0 ohms connection. I might stop there at 412 on the plates. Now, what's our bias sitting at? Our bias is sitting at minus 37, minus 36.5. Well, I haven't touched the bias pots at all, so we'll come back and look at those. Here's the screen, 413, plate, 413. Check it on the other side, 413, 413. That's looking very positive. Nothing's popped, no smoke, good sign. I think next step is I'm going to put in all the preamp tubes, ramp it up again. I'm sure that'll be fine too. Then I'll put in the power tubes. We'll ramp it up again. Now I think if I remember correctly, we had a cooked set. So these are the original ones. You can see how they've overheated, but really poor plate currents. Yeah, all gone. 8.5, 10.5. Okay, we're going to need a new quad. So now we're going to be checking on the bias of the new matched quartet. Got two ways of measuring the bias current. I'm going to start off using the Marshall method, which is we have two tubes, the cathodes going into one 1 ohm resistor, which is going to one of the pins for bias checking, and we've got another 1 ohm resistor for these going into the other bias pin. Both pairs are biased very cold. We would expect it, on this one we can see conveniently that the plate voltage is 485. We'd be expecting, let's say, 35 milliamps per tube. So let's start off by getting to about 70 milliamps on both of these. So I'll start by doing about 37 milliamps on that one, which is, so I've got a total of 74 milliamps on these two. They do interact with each other a little bit. I've currently got 71 and 70 milliamps total, which is 35 per tube at 473. 0.035 by 473 equals 16.5 watts divided by a 25 watt tube. That's about 66%. Okay, I like that. Now, we have to remember one little trap though. When we're measuring these currents that are going through the cathode resistor, that's a sum of the plate current and the screen current. These voltages, millivoltages, will be reading a little bit high compared to the plate voltage that we actually want. This is the actual plate current, 30 and 30. We can see how well matched they are. So I've got a matched quartet. That's a total of 60 milliamps. And yet on my display, on my fluke, I've got 69 milliamps. So where's that extra 9 milliamps coming from? It's coming from the screen. I normally allow about 10% screen current. In this case, it seems to be a little bit more, allowing for some errors in the measuring resistors and the instruments we're using here. So 30 milliamps, let's just look at this. These are going to be more accurate. So let's say 30 milliamps by 467 volts equals 14. Divide that by a 25 watt tube is 56%. I'm quite liking that. I might take it up just a little bit more. So now I've got both meters reading 82 milliamps, 41 milliamps per tube, actually 36 milliamps per tube equals 16.8 watts, 67. That is where it's going to stay. I'm very happy with that. Can it go hotter? Yeah, it can go a little bit. Probably nudge it up to 70%. Probably could go down to 60%. But I think to get a little bit of that Marshall crunch, I want it a little bit warmer than what I'd put it on a Fender amp. Those values are now very stable. I'm going to sit here and stare at them mindlessly for another 10 minutes. You don't need to do that. And I'm hopeful that they're going to be stable with that new PCB. And then we'll call the tubes biased. 10 minutes later, bias is rock solid at 36 milliamps per tube. Pretty much all that's left is to hear it. I'll do a clean of all of the pots and the input jacks, sockets, and the effects loop. That's important that we keep that clean. Then we'll reassemble. We're on the home run. I've cleaned up all the pots. They're nice and quiet now. Cleaned the input socket, the send return socket. Now we're going to check for microphonics on the tubes, and there's a muting input here. So if we don't plug something in, I'm going to turn the volume right down on the guitar, else we'll be howling like a stuck pig. Right, this is full volume on a 100 watt amp. Oh yeah. Mute that one. Not too bad. Let's crank it back a bit. I think that was being too hurtful. It's definitely microphonic. That's not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Just preamp tube number 1, which is nearly always the most susceptible one. They're all 12AX7s, so I'm thinking, let's swap this one, V1, let's swap it with a phase inverter and see if we can save the owner the cost of a preamp tube. Much better. quiet, quiet. Because it's not as sensitive, because by here the signal levels are way higher than here. So this is going to be the most. That's right. I'm happy about that. These I expect will be quiet. All right, let's try another channel. Cranking, cranking, cranking. Look, this is full volume on the ultra gain channel and gain about on 4. I don't know that I want to waste the customer's money. You know, I'm going to I'll grab another 12AX7 and we'll try it, and if it's noticeably better, we'll do it. Replace it with the JJ. It's quieter in the microphonics, but I think it's noisier in the hiss. Ah, God. I'm going to grab another one, quite like the Mallard CV004 ones. I've got pretty much every tube in stock. Let's see. Oh, that's going. That's way more microphonic. Oh yeah, it had loud hiss as well. I think the best one was that JJ. So that's pretty high volume, high gain. So we're hearing a lot of exaggerated hiss. I don't think it'll be anything near as bad as that. So we've got 4 new power tubes, 1 preamp tube. I'd appreciate your input on this one. It takes me a long time, as you've probably noticed, to upload videos. The main problem is editing. It just takes me a long time. I must be very inefficient at it. Because I use 2 cameras normally. This time I'm just using 1 camera. I'm not going to set up my normal recording stuff for this experiment. And I want you to tell me, quite honestly, whether this sound quality and video quality is good enough for you. I'm perfectly happy to go back to the old 2 camera and recording machine, much higher quality, but is this good enough? And that's only something you can tell me. I'm now going to put this up near my Jensen Night something, what is it? Jensen Nighthawk speaker, and record these sound samples for you. Using my artist guitars, 58X, 335, Inspire. Sounds great. Bull bucket pickups. Wow, that thing is a gain machine. It's very super gainy, way more than I would ever use, but I must admit, I really did like the clean channel, and I really did like the clean channel with a bit of crunch, and I even like the ultra gain channel. If that sound sample was good enough quality, please let me know. Any hesitation, I'm just going to go back to the old way of doing it, and it just takes me longer to get videos done. But I'm looking forward to your comments. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video.